Catspawn is an artist sanctuary in the village of Tivoli. Over 150 acres, it's got indoor theaters, 2 outdoor stages, and housing for dancers, the Dancers Inn. We're there on a beautiful Saturday late afternoon around 4 p.m., the first weekend as the state started to relax masks and social distancing. Brian bought tickets for us to hear Patti Smith, and our cousin and friend Lisa joins us. Seeing a parade of cars enter the property, we park on the main road in the village instead and walk carrying our chairs, snacks, and drinks across Catspawn's huge campus. To be honest, it's a bit weird to be around so many people. This isn't just the 5 or 10 we've been around occasionally, but more like 300. A real crowd. As we walk, you can sense people on guard, and the Catspawn staff still take our temperature as they check our tickets. I feel a little bit like a survivor. After all, as you know from the news or from people in your own life, not everyone made it. There are people we know who got COVID and got past it. There are people who didn't make it, including a cousin of mine. Yet here we are. Carrying my chair, a new Yeti Brian just bought us, on my back, I mentioned to Brian and Lisa that I wonder if John McEnroe will be here. They both wonder, wait, why would he be here? Oh, I think he's married to her, I say, having read this on Wikipedia. Brian thinks for a minute. Matt, that's Patti Smythe. Oh, I say, realizing I might have been preparing for a completely different event. This is Patti Smith, he continues. You know, the singer-songwriter? Because the Night? Bob Dylan? Right, I say, right. Not being right at all. Lisa also admits her expectations were different. She heard Catspawn, she says, and I thought we were coming to a dance performance. Well, we can dance, I suppose, I offer up. Down a half mile, the stage's backdrop is the Catskill Mountains across the Hudson River. This is just incredible, and a lucky place to be anytime, much less emerging from the darkness of a pandemic. We find a spot and start to unpack. Our Yeti chairs are so new, we take off the tags and labels in front of everyone. I sit down and wow, are they comfortable. We're in the general audience section, but I feel like this is first class. I look around at the other chairs and we clearly have the best ones. I tell Lisa and Brian, we have the best chairs. In our bag, we've got chopped carrots, broccoli, celery, hummus, gluten-free cockers, a bottle of white, a bottle of rosé, and travel-sized tequila and ice. We also have dinner at Ciabatta at 5:30 p.m. Patti Smith comes on stage with 2 players, one of whom will turn out to be her son. We sit back in our Yeti chairs, smile, and hear our first live music in a year. She opens with exactly what I feel. Grateful. I'm Matt Zucker, and this is Cidiot, Learning to Live and Love Life in the Hudson Valley. Episode 47, and in time for Memorial Day. Grateful. Those in-person experiences like a Catspawn are definitely on my list about feeling grateful. You'll remember me talk about savoring experiences in episode 18, and about the pop-up diner in a barn on a farm, not to mention Thanksgiving in the Summer, episode 25, and Festivus, episode 30. The last 12 months have had few, if any, live in-person experiences, unless you count Zoom events. There's still a lot to be grateful for. Obviously, Brian and Nora for starters. Location comes to mind second. We've benefited from the open space of the countryside, yet we were still within driving distance of nearly all of our family and only 2 hours to New York City. I got my vaccine shots at Javits, picked up my new bike in Brooklyn, plus an emergency stop at Russ & Daughters for lox and chopped liver. Farm stand stores are just my favorite thing, and were particularly helpful during lockdown. Many stayed open throughout winter, and we could pick up fresh vegetables and most other groceries in a sparsely populated environment. They're not just in rural areas, too. Down visiting my mom in New Jersey for a few days, she took me to see Prince's Farm Stand in Mountainside, owned by a family I went to high school with, and I caught up with Heather, who runs the place. It's an amazing store full of delicious foods as well as plants for sale. I loved how Heather stocks the store with locally made products from New Jersey, including pickles and the Griddle Cakes brand of Franco Lania, whose little brother was in my year in high school. Our second freezer shows up high on the grateful list. It took forever to get here, but so glad we ordered it. There's a shelf for each meat and one for my gluten-free breads and bagels. On the door are sauces and broth that Brian has frozen, and my 100-calorie frozen yogurts, which pass as dessert. Routines would be a fifth thing which kept us sane. Farmers have chores and we don't have a farm, so we have routines. Friday there's Shabbat, with which with the good weather we started to do by the Hudson River, even bringing candles with us. Saturday mornings I'll go for a bike ride on my new bike, or a run walk, which is me dressing up to run, but jogging and then jogging again if a car comes by. Of course there's the garden. No idea how great it would be when we first bought the house. Admittedly, it first looked like a pain in the ass with all its areas, beds, and variety to look after. Then Brian fell in love with taking care of it, and I fell in love with sitting in it. We've hosted several garden parties, which I can't wait to get back to. And we just realized, after 6 years, that we could actually turn the garden into a movie theater. We bought a giant screen, hooked it up to the Apple TV and a speaker, converted the Vermont cart into a bar, invited over Rochelle, Chris, and Greg, and together, in the Adirondack chairs, we watched Halston together. This could become a regular thing. This episode of Cidiot is lucky to be sponsored by Ledgewood Kennel, a premier full-service pet facility in Millerton, New York, serving New York State, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. For dogs, cats, birds, fish, and ferrets, Ledgewood offers boarding, grooming, doggy daycare, and training, and get this, a pool for dogs. The pool is also part of a growing international sport of dock diving, in which, get this, dogs compete in jumping for distance, height, and speed retrieval. You may have seen Ledgewood host competitions on the CBS Early Show. I need to watch videos of dogs dock diving. Plus, with competitive rates, early access to the city, Ledgewood Kennel sits on a large working farm with open land and beautiful views. Planning your first trips post-pandemic? Doing a getaway and can't bring the dog or cat? Visit ledgewoodkennel.com and tell them Cidiot sent you. Now back to the episode. I've always sensed a very distant relationship between those who serve in the military or have close relatives and those who haven't or don't. It's Memorial Day weekend, so I think it's appropriate to talk about it. Brian's grandfather served in World War II, and my dad served in the Air Force. My dad was stationed in Cape Canaveral, where he said what he mostly did was a terrible job making his bed and pushing buttons to shoot missiles into the sky. So yeah, I have a fairly detached view of what it means to serve, although I often meet clients or friends who do have someone in their family serving. The benefits to me, of course, are that I don't have to serve, which is lucky. I don't know what I would do except probably find some kind of communications job like Brian's grandfather who handled equipment in Italy. Because my dad served, though, I get to use USAA for home and auto insurance, which is phenomenal. I stopped by our village's memorial to soldiers lost in various wars the other day. It sits on an island near the center of the village across from the Elmendorf Inn, which you've heard me talk about. 6 years here, and it was my first time walking through it. It's really quite impressive. There's giant engravings for each war, 2 for World War II, listing the names of people from the town who died in service. For a small town, the list is hauntingly long. Some last names I recognize from street signs or local business names. History isn't something we can just learn at a comfortable distance. It's filled with people who fought for what you'd like to think you would fight for. Too many lose their lives. I'm not sure it's enough to simply be grateful. You can't do grateful without including people. Family, friends, colleagues, listeners like you. This podcast has definitely kept me going in more ways before, during, and surely will after the pandemic. I'm in marketing, so I can't help but occasionally look at the show's analytics. And would you believe that Cidiot has about 30,000 plays so far? The first 3 episodes are at 1,500 episodes listened. And the average episode has about 400 listeners and growing. Geography is 98% U.S., majority in New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois, with a smattering of another 10 states. Apple Podcasts is used by 2/3 of listeners, followed by Spotify, Overcast, and a mix of others. But it's the faces that are more fun than the numbers. People that I've met through the podcast, or who messaged me about something they liked or got a kick out of. Or even who take the time to write a review in the Apple Podcast Store, or buy some merch like a trucker cap, t-shirt, or a notepad. It's great. There's also that outside validation, which you know I love. Cidiot this past year began its sponsorship and content program. Prime Print Shop in Poughkeepsie, Ledgewood Kennel in Millerton, The Chicken Librarian, and coming soon, Bangleworks, a co-working community in Stamford, New York. I put up some info about the content program and sponsorships on Cidiot.com. Cidiot's also been highlighted in Country Living magazine, won a Communicator Award for Excellent in Podcasting, and was just contacted by another publication to use one of my photos. And of course, we're all eagerly waiting the news on the Chronogrammies. I'm grateful. Because of living through this, because of living here, because of you, because of everything.
Because the night belongs to lovers, because the night belongs to us.
I'm Matt Zucker, and thank you for listening to Cidiot. Lots more to come this season. Please leave a review in the Apple Podcast Store. Visit Cidiot.com for links to trucker caps and other merch. We'd love to hear from you with any requests or thoughts. Remember, there's that audio message option on anchor.com/Cidiot. It's so cool, and only like 3 people have used it. Be sure to subscribe to Cidiot. Follow us on Instagram at cidiot.hv, on Facebook at facebook.com/CidiotLife. Please support our sponsors by following, calling, or choosing them. Get vaccinated, and of course, come visit.